hope everyone is enjoying the second day of the conference here as we're about to wrap things up. But to cap things off, we're going to dive into how new structures of collaboration, such as decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs, and decentralized science in general can serve to bring everyone together and rally around endeavors that can help all of society, such as longevity research. So to basically start, I just want to start out with a quick question where you all can kind of introduce yourself a little bit more quickly. So I'd like to hear each of you briefly describe your work and how it relates to decentralization and community building, et cetera. So maybe Jelani, you could start us off because I know that your organization bridges together many organizations.
Yeah, so I'm one of the executive leads at DeSci World. Before that, I'm a PhD. I have a PhD in neuroimmunology, and I used to work in biotech, specifically at a biotech launchpad. So I kind of bridged the divide between academic research and commercialization. But in the Web3 DeSci space, DeSci World is an information aggregation platform and community infrastructure hub. So our goal and mission really is to vanguard the DeSci space, provide gateways for persons and participants to come into the space, learn about amazing projects like the ones we have here, AthenaDAO, VitaDAO, across the different fields, and kind of show scientists what is being developed and what kind of toolings they can apply today to help further their research. So we really sit at that community engagement level. We help organize conferences around the world. Our goal is really to just amplify the DeSci mission statement to various places, particularly to participants that have been traditionally left out of traditional science infrastructure. So that's me.
Great, Chauncey.
Hi, Chauncey Saint-John here. Spent about 10 years as a global program leader for GE before founding Angel Protocol in May of 21. We've rebranded since to Angel Giving, but our goal is to democratize access to opportunity, starting with the organizations who need it most, nonprofits. And the whole goal there is really to introduce the concept of sustainability, try and be an infrastructure improvement for philanthropy as a whole, using blockchain both for iterative improvements in terms of creating access for people in emerging markets to be able to fundraise around the world, invest those funds in different tokenized assets like US Treasury bills, and actually grow a sustainable runway. And then taking kind of the iterative approach to building a better system, in Bucky Fuller's words, to really transforming the way people look at how philanthropy can be done to a much more decentralized, publicly curated, transparent model.
Hey everyone, I'm Azeem. I'm the head of impact at an organization which is a DAO named GITCOIN. We've been distributing grants to open source software developers for about 4 years now. Have distributed a little over, somewhere between $55 and $60 million. Last year, we helped enable the largest decentralized science grants round. We ended up distributing close to $700,000 to 100 plus projects. We did another round earlier this year where we distributed about $100,000. Within that, there have been longevity projects, obviously. My interest in DeSci and science comes from the fact that I have a bachelor's and a master's in biology. I did a thesis in George Church's lab at Harvard Medical School and seeing if you could make DNA sequencing faster if you circularized it. And so since then have just, it's been over a decade since then, but just been really interested in what's been going on and really excited for what's to come in the space with DeSci.
Hi, Natasha Vita-More. My background is diverse, and I kind of like that. My mother used to say, you're a jack of all trades, be an ace of something. So I decided to ace 3 different particular fields. First off, I'm a university professor in ethics, technology, the future. I also created the world's largest longevity movement starting in the early 1980s. I had a television show in Los Angeles on the future of health and longevity. And it reached over 100,000 people. It aired in Los Angeles and around community, and also I had my own program in Telluride, Colorado. If you've been to Telluride, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, go there. I've stuck with the idea of the culture of longevity ever since I got interested in it in 1980. 1983, I wrote a manifesto that got on board the Cassini-Huygens spacecraft on its mission to Saturn and the satellites of Saturn. That movement continues to grow. So my advocacy in longevity is not just about health span and exercise and well-being. It's also about the future technology of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and the ways we can look at enhancement, increasing our health span. The third area that I take most of my interest in is in the sciences. I did have a scientific breakthrough. I'm one of the very few in this community that actually did have a scientific breakthrough. It was in long-term memory. It still stands out as seminal, and it was with the most beautiful organism called the ringworm, or the C. elegans, a beautiful, elegant worm. Now you might say, well, it's just a worm and we're humans. But the point is that it is an animal. However simple, it is stunning. And I proved that the neurons in this animal sustained or preserved their integrity through vitrification, the process we use to freeze embryos, sperm, egg, and cells, and which is growing as a major field in cryobiology. So that's my contribution. I created the H+DAO to find distributed ways of gaining information about people who are doing work and getting that information out to those who can bring that work to the forefront. Currently, I'm working in South Africa, in Nigeria, and Ethiopia, bringing information education to people who really want to learn and need to learn. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Eleanor Davies. I'm at VitaDAO. VitaDAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO, and how we approach longevity is community first. So I'm Dealflow steward. For those who aren't really familiar with what a steward is, it's somebody who takes care of a particular working group in the DAO, so it kind of functions in a way that's similar to a venture studio or a venture model. What we do at VitaDAO is we fund pre-seed longevity research, and we basically help scientists bring their innovations from the laboratory into company creation and beyond.
Great, and I'd like to just note that Lifespan.io has worked with all of the organizations that are represented by the people here, and I think many have also worked with each other, so I think this is just like a great panel to showcase the entire field coming together. And with that, I'm sure some of the audience members are new to some of these concepts, like what exactly a DAO is, or what is decentralized science? What does blockchain technology allow for? That wasn't possible previously in terms of new ways of funding, managing data, et cetera. So this is an open question to the floor here, but if any of you want to speak of any of the specific like technological innovations that are allowing new things to happen. So open to the floor.
I guess I'll go first on the funding side. So as I'd mentioned, we've been doing this method of funding called quadratic funding. In essence, it's sort of a crowdfunding campaign where your individual dollars are matched by money from larger donations from big organizations who are looking to sponsor different verticals. VitaDAO was actually one of our sponsors for the DeSci round that we did. And so for us, it's been interesting, and looking back to being someone who was applying for grants a decade ago and how difficult it was to get even just those small initial bits of capital. The work that we do has been interesting in being able to enable earlier stage scientists who are trying to put together funds for whatever research it is that they're looking to work on, and get them that initial capital that moves away from the fact that there's like a monopoly of 2 or 3 organizations that you need to be able to figure out how to play the politics that no one will explain to you to be able to get access to even limited amounts of funds.
So, I mean, for anybody here who listened to Brian's talk or Laura's talk or VitaDAO's talk, we understand that there's the leveraging of this technology, whether it be from the perspective of governance, committing things on chain to allow for provenance and transparency of data acquisition, the tangibilization of traditionally intangible assets that really permeate the scientific endeavor, most of which existed those intangible assets, right? Ideologies, conference proceedings, all of these things that it's hard to capture their value in the physical world are able to be captured and tokenized in the digital world. and therefore can be leveraged in a variety of ways, whether it be outside of the normal confines of institutions through tech transfer offices, kind of skirting those in some instances, or leveraging them in different ways, providing privacy protection on your ownership of that data, and therefore being able to gate who has access to that data, not necessarily in an exclusionary, proprietary way, but determining where this data should go, who should have access to it, whether it be your personal medical data or any kind of other frameworks. That is what some of the technology in the DeSci technology stack is really meant to do. And that can be applied to funding agencies like we have here. It can be applied to publishing, revamping, revolutionizing, peer reviewing, incentivizing things that traditionally weren't incentivized, like negative data, micro-publications, all of these things that normally or not normally, but ideally as a scientist you want to accrue value but haven't been able to before. That's what the DeSci stack offers, and it's a plethora of different organizations, 100 plus, in a variety of different tech stacks. So we're not going to be able to cover it here, but I highly recommend everybody, especially scientists and science-curious individuals as well, to go do a little bit of a deep dive, go down the rabbit hole. I'm sure you'll find something that addresses your needs.
Keith, you ask, what do we have today that we didn't have before? And I think one of the most outstanding observations is that we have this synergy of different fields that are coming together through technology. So you have your blockchain here, you have your DAOs here, you have your information there, you have your smart contracts, you have your tokens. All these different elements have come together to form this very unique synergistic communication grid that is effectuating a new way of getting information to people more seamlessly, with more transparency, and more excitement. This is really cool. I mean, if you had all these different departments in universities, they would be in each of their ivory towers, and there would be a lack of communication between the departments based on vernacular, right? Well, we all know the vernacular of DAOs, or we're learning them, and that's the great part. Now, on the downside of that, what we have today that we didn't have before is a very big lack of communication about how people are educated about what's really going on, but we'll get to that.
Yes, and that's a good segue too, because there was mention of earlier tokens, NFTs, etc. So that's a good pivot to Eleanor. I know VitaDAO works with both tokens for governance and NFTs. So.
So VitaDAO is basically governed by the Vita token, and how it's different is that community members are able to have more of a say in terms of where the direction of longevity research funding goes. So instead of a traditional top-down hierarchy in a venture firm, for instance, the community basically has a say as to how something should be governed, what sort of projects to advance. So that's the Vita token. Separate to that is the IP NFT. And so for instance, this is applicable for pre-IP projects and the venture building side, but whereas researchers spend 50% of their time writing grants for non-dilutive funding, this is basically a different way of looking at funding pre-IP research non-dilutively, and also enabling community to have more of an open look. Sorry, frozen.
Well, on that subject of sort of reducing kind of duplication, et cetera, or wasted time of doing things that hopefully researchers shouldn't be doing. Chauncey, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think angel giving is a DAO itself, but I know you have a consortium, Angel Alliance, et cetera, bring groups together to build infrastructure. So can you explain how that's been serving those that are working in DAOs, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can briefly just take a quick step back, just on the topic of blockchain, DeSci, how this is so transformative, I find it very helpful to think in terms of analogy here, right? And I feel like there's kind of a barbell of, it's very difficult to talk about and get your head around this space because it's everything, right? The breadth of it is everything, right? It's just digital ownership and sovereignty. But the implications of that range from very iterative, things are faster, they are cheaper, they're globally accessible, to an entire new design space for human systems thinking and interaction, where you can construct trustless systems that are just done by computer code that allow peer-to-peer type of connections. And when you start taking these fundamental building blocks and applying them across all of the different industries and disciplines, there's really no limit to what you can't talk about and innovate with this technology. So for angel giving, we start at a very iterative level, right? We make it possible so any nonprofit anywhere in the world can get access to fundraise from anyone else anywhere in the world, and then grow those funds through tokenized investments, things like UST bills or crypto or other types of real world assets as they're called. And so again, very iterative kind of stuff. But then you can take it next level. So we do have the concept of the DAO, which is the world's first decentralized autonomous nonprofit organization. The idea is you use that trustless smart contract logic to basically set a cap on operating expenses that get voted on at a governance level. Every nonprofit on our platform then can have its own curation mechanism where people donate. They get a Halo token for donating. That Halo token gets automatically staked to the charity or nonprofit they're donating to. Both themselves and the nonprofit enjoy the appreciation of that token. It now creates an incentive alignment where donors are incentivized to help fundraise for that nonprofit. Nonprofits are incentivized to help be more transparent with their donors. And in this way, instead of taking a hard club approach where you're designing rules and having this violence layer of enforcement, you're instead using incentive design, because incentives drive outcomes, right? So you just have to put the right incentives in place, and that's where blockchain technology, smart contracts are truly transformative.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Like I personally feel that when things go south, it's not because the people are bad or something like that. It's because there's a flaw in the system. So if we can figure out a better way to configure the system, and create natural incentive models. So one of the things that we want to accomplish by being here is to, I think we all know the cool technologies, right? But we want to figure out how to make things better. So I think let's have a candid conversation about what are the challenges that these transformative technologies bring. So as an example, I frequently hear complaints that working in DAOs can be chaotic, stressful. Sometimes it causes duplication of effort where you should think that decentralization should stop that, right? So I think we can just have a candid conversation of like, what is stressing you out? What are the challenges? What maybe do we think we can learn and work on better? Because it's rough, right, sometimes. So anyone who wants to start.
Oh God, gas. The gasoline, getting gas, standing in line, waiting to go to the exchange bureau, and then having to pay for more gas and try to get there faster, and then, I just want to say that humorously, but it's true. Gas prices are up here, they're up there as well. But go ahead and I'll jump in with something more clever.
Well, I could tell that Eleanor was ready to jump on that question, so.
No, I actually think that, so the thing about DAOs and ensuring community cohesion is to bridge the virtual and the in-person, because DAOs are pretty noisy, and I feel as though a lot of opinions, sort of float around. There's a lot of there's a lot of noise, but I think that once you meet in person over the same cause, I feel as though it brings together a more cohesive and mission-aligned community. On top of that, I think onboarding is really key in terms of getting the right context and understanding the narrative as to what the DAO does, how it's structured, like what is the DAO, why Web3, why is this even relevant? And I think speaking with a person is always, a really good way in order to come into the DAO. So at VitaDAO, we run weekly onboarding calls. We talk through the governance, how the DAO works, how you can get involved, bounties, contract work, company building, and the relevance to the longevity field.
I love that you mentioned onboarding there, because I think that's something that we're all struggling with as a field, not just inside our individual DAOs, but just how do we onboard the rest of the world, right? So I think that's a good pivot, maybe Azeem, to you, because I remember one of the coolest onboarding experiences that I had was the quadratic lands onboarding, where I had this like nice video series, et cetera. So maybe you don't have to talk about that specifically, but can you speak to, because GITCOIN was so successful, how did you bring so many people to the party?
First, to be critical of DAOs, I think one of the biggest things I've experienced across DAOs is that a lack of clear hierarchy. I know that we're supposed to move away from hierarchy using DAOs, but lack of clear hierarchy has just like consistently across the board shown ineffectiveness in being able to move forward. At times, consensus isn't the way to go about doing things, and we need to have top-down decision makers. I don't think that I have the answer for how to fix it for the entire industry by any means, but I've definitely seen that it's something that people are afraid to say out loud, but they'll privately tell you this in their DMs, that things don't end up moving forward because in a group of 12, 11 people agree on something, and then one last person who doesn't actually have any understanding of what they're talking about has different feelings, and using those feelings, it ends up derailing the ability to move forward. For GITCOIN, it's been interesting. I think like for us, we sit in an interesting space, I'd say in the Ethereum ecosystem, other than the Ethereum Foundation, we're one of the most credible orgs. And with that, we've been able to work with some really awesome organizations and be able to get a bridge of trust that most organizations who are building their brands initially may not have. And so we're able to say things like, we've distributed $60 million. We've been doing this for years. We've worked with UNICEF. We work with the World Economic Forum. Like, we're having conversations with the World Wildlife Fund. And so even if you're outside of the Web3 space, we're able to offer some of the traditional forms of prestige that people are impressed by, and then open them up to listening to us, because at the moment, for the most part, the crypto space has just been fraud in many ways, at least for what's publicized. Today news came out that they're going to finally jail SBF ahead of his trial because of multiple witness tampering. And so like most people hear about those things. So what I've found is being able to use what we do at GITCOIN as a way to educate people outside of the space has been the most exciting thing. Within Web3, we're all very familiar with why this is such innovative and groundbreaking technology, how it's going to help change the world, but then you step outside of it and they only know about monkey JPEGs. And so I'd say that's, yeah, exactly, right? And so at least for the work that I do, and I end up having to do a lot of conversations with people outside of our space, it's been what I've found to be an awesome thing. Just 2 weeks ago, we did it was a panel with a few of us on Zoom with Springer Nature, and over 50 people from the company showed up to hear us talking about what's going on in DeSci in sort of like this informal advisory capacity. And you can tell they're excited because after the panel talk, I had eight or nine people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I've had conversations with them separately about how they think that they could better understand what's going on in DeSci.
No, I think that's a great answer, Azeem. Thanks for the candidness. I think what you just said speaks to the importance of having like very positively undeniable flagship cases that validate the field and say, no, we're not just monkey memes. We've got this, we just raised $100 million for cancer or something like that, right? Yeah, and I want to pivot this to Jelani, because you had mentioned also the challenges of DAO governance, right? And I know there's a lot of potential different strategies that you can employ there. You might have sort of concentric circles of who can vote on what. And Jelani, from your perspective, dealing with a lot of different DAOs, has anything emerged from your perspective as like that seems to be a really effective strategy of having decentralization but still also being able to pull the trigger on things?
Yeah, so I think, VitaDAO is a very big success story in terms of their governance structure. And I think it speaks to the idea that, we're very focused on DAOs here, but DAOs originate in the realm of decentralized finance, where the focus is on transactions. And so you don't need personal interaction at that level. With DeSci, where it's different is you do have to have a hierarchical structure, because though I'm a neuroimmunologist, that doesn't qualify me to be making decisions or even inputs on longevity-based aspects beyond my field. So there has to be a filtering layer. And we see this when it comes to incoming proposals, right? Not everybody can vote on this. And so your meritocracy, really what a DAO does and what it helps to do is to validate or to quantify your meritocracy. It creates an ecosystem where you can meritocratically decide on something and then be retroactively compensated, whether through funds or through tokenization or through badges, soulbound tokens, philanthropy, for your activity. So it's a great coordination vector. but it does need to have a hierarchical structure because of the nature of the scientific realm. So that, first and foremost, there's going to be, as the DeSci community, we need to restructure what DAOs mean to us, or DOs, really, decentralized organizations, because the automation really isn't there yet until we start to integrate with things like AI. And so I think as DeSci matures, we're actually going to start to separate ourselves from traditional Web3, just by virtue of our in real activity and the structuredness that needs to come from that. So I would say VitaDAO is a good example of what you should look for when evaluating, do I want to participate in a DAO? What kind of governance structures? And I mean, nothing's perfect, right? We're extremely early in this space. So there are checks and balances that still need to be developed. But this is a fantastic start.
Also, I just want to add to that, reputation management is one angle to go. Another one, which we're working on with the H+ DAO, is called the DAO Matcher. And so there's different protocols that are being created to get reputation management. What can you vote on? If you have the most tokens doesn't mean that you should be able to vote on everything. And that's one of the problems, the consequences with this. So there has to be other ways, reputation management, but that gets a little squirrely too. Who's going to judge your reputation? And even with the DAO Matcher, where our AI team is working on that now, how do you get that viability to be able to determine where the money's going or the crypto's going, on what projects?
So before we switch off, we've been talking a lot about a lot of the negatives or some of the kind of grayer areas. But what I think the biggest value proposition that DAOs actually bring to, or these kind of organizational structures bring to science, the funding is one, and it's the one that people are focused the most on because everybody likes money and everybody really understands money. But as it consists of, I think the real value proposition here is professional accelerators. Right? If you think about it, everybody in this room, though we don't know each other or we didn't know each other prior, this is a great opportunity to network. Now scale this globally and think about individuals who have been previously excluded from the system, whether it be to geographical locations or exclusions, being able to plug into a network of professionals like myself, these ones, everybody else, and get nurtured and tutored and mentored within a field that people are interested in doing so in. To me, I think the educational piece and the learning curve and the professional development that comes out of this as it comes to scale is really going to be what brings DeSci and changes the world for not just longevity biotech or longevity research in general, but all forms of research. We want to increase the surface area for contact. To me, science is a contact sport, right? You have to engage with your peers, and there are so many people that have been left out of that. So that, to me, when I go talk to institutions about DeSci and other folks about DeSci, that is the value proposition. Being able to interact with a network of peers that can help you grow and you can input and help them as well. You don't need to be a specialist to contribute here. You really, really don't.
Yeah. And just quickly on the DAO point, just to what I was saying before, we like to make things a lot fancier and more complicated than they are. And we have a habit of wanting to rethink things from first principles so bad, we kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater. But what is a DAO? It's an online organization that you can do stuff without a central intermediary, right? You don't have to go to your community organization to do it. You can just meet up with other people and all join and transact value. So to me, when we talk about why don't DAOs work, what do we need to do? It's kind of like going back to the basics, right? Plato in the Republic said the worst form of government was democracy, other than complete anarchy, like pure democracy, where everyone votes on everything. He's like, it just doesn't work at all. And that's where we tried to start with DAOs. And it's like, of course that doesn't work. And so, maybe it's more the Winston Churchill of democratic representation is the worst form of government except all the others. And we're just experimenting again. It's just the same as trying to figure out the Constitution. We just have a few more tools in the toolkit, so.
Yeah, you just made me think of Angelina as well. We're spending a lot of time focusing on just DAOs in general, but there's also just a broader shift towards decentralization and sort of the challenges and onboarding technical challenges. So I kind of want to pivot this into, and Chauncey, you might have something to say on this in terms of the interface of angel giving. And Eleanor, I know we were just talking about different financial products, but what are the ways that we think that maybe new kind of financial products or something like that could help to engage more people without requiring such a cognitive lift to get involved? Maybe Eleanor, you could start with that.
So in terms of engaging more people, what I'm particularly excited about is the fractionalization of IP NFTs. So what does this do? This enables people in the community to own governance over the IP of a project. So IP is traditionally very illiquid. However, this is basically taking a different look at how that works. And what this does is it promotes openness, the collaborative ethos of the DeSci field. It also means that you can raise, again, non-dilutive funding in order to further the development of a project. So what can you do? You can maybe compensate researchers with, say, a basket of BioDAO ETFs, for instance, versus traditional fiat currency. Again, it promotes openness and collaboration across different spin-outs, maybe a VitaDAO, women's health, IP NFT, IPT, IP token, maybe one from VitaDAO. So we recently launched VitaFast, which is from Victor Korolchuk's project. It relates to autophagy with Newcastle University. There are also BioDAO tokens, so within the DeSci community.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I'm going to say two very controversial things. People often talk about how we need better user experience. We just need to make it easier for people to use the technology. And yes, that is absolutely true. But in a way, I'm almost grateful that the UX is not better, because the underlying technology, the back end of that front end, is not ready yet, right? And we see that over and over again. Like, we want to go so fast, and we're so proud of what we've created, and we should be, because it's beautiful. But it has to be so simple, because even the blue chip ones with Lindy effect, the protocols that have been out there, you see every day new exploits happen. Smart contracts are inherently extremely complicated things, right? So we need to build very simple smart contracts that are battle tested before we try and open it up to saying, hey, retail, come put millions of your dollars into these vehicles, when we see people get burned again and again and again. So we need more safety. We need probably a little more regulation, you know? Like, some of the stuff that other organizations and types of industries have to go through, you realize after getting burned enough times that there's reasons for some of those things, right? As someone who came into this space, well, I'll wrap up there, but basically Angel's been through it all. I came in as a pure idealist, thought everything was ready for prime time. We raised over $6 million on the Terra blockchain. We saw that collapse on us and almost all of that money go away. We were able to make the nonprofits whole, and it has been a strenuous, trying couple years. And I'm very optimistic about this space. I'm a believer. I still think it's fully transformative. But sometimes maybe slowing down a little bit isn't the worst thing.
Yeah, I want to build off that real quick by just drawing a common thread there between longevity research and blockchain technology, right? Because, yeah, I don't think I actually really thought of that, articulated that way before, Chauncey. But yes, like when the advent of a real black swan incident can really set the field back. It's happened in aging research before. So that's a totally valid point. And I also want to say that I really think the idea of like a BioDAO ETF is awesome, because that just made me think that I've been having conversations with like my bank for like so long. Like, can we have like more kinds of ETFs so that I can actually put my money in some like a field that I care about? But I want to pivot this to a completely different kind of area, which is sort of a twofold question. Even though decentralization is supposed to involve everyone, I don't think I'm breaking any news by saying that, you know, blockchain technology and even, you know, biomedical research isn't necessarily the most diverse area, right? So one of the questions is, how can we make that better? What are your experiences? And as a two-parter with that, have we noticed trends over the past decade or so in that, and also just in general bringing the world together? And I'd like to start this question with Natasha, because you've been at this, you know, fight longer, I think, than any of us. So I want to, how have things changed in terms of engaging the world, engaging a diverse world? Do you see positive trends, negative trends, etc.?
Yeah, wow, it's amazing how things have changed. Okay, first, the World Wide Web, and then the Internet of Things, and then digitality, then augmented reality, virtual reality, gamification. I mean, the list goes on, and here we are at blockchain. But if we think about it, blockchain was around in the 1970s. I mean, Ralph Merkle with the Merkle tree. I mean, hello? And if you think about Bitcoin, and you mentioned Hal Finney, I mean, Hal Finney was a friend of mine. I mean, we're going back way early, Bitcoin, and looking at cryptocurrency. In fact, so many friends working on encryption and looking at what happens if the World Wide Web becomes. And we were all into longevity. That was number one, longevity. And we worked on it in our varied fields. But it's what's so interesting is that the good side is that, again, the synergy of all this coming together in such a mellifluous way is quite wonderful, and the poetry of it is really stunningly beautiful. The downside of it is that the horrors of it are still there, and they're rampant. And it's because of our human nature. We look at those who are hacking, we look at those who are, black money, we look at the manipulation, the stealing of money, the stealing of ideas, all this, and it's not going to change unless we change. So, going to the last speaker on brain health, one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves is consider our brain health, not just for longevity, but also our consciousness and how we behave. I mean, we can't expect blockchain to solve the problems, or cryptocurrency, or any AI, anything, unless we think about this. So the big changes are here. Number one, as an academic and a scientist and innovator, I will say that with decentralized science, it is of the utmost importance that we have peer review or blind peer review papers. I'm totally opposed to anyone saying, I've got an idea and I don't have to publish. No, you damn well have to publish, excuse me very much. And it has to be proven again and again and again. That is science, and that is the beauty of science. Creativity is something different. Be, performance artists, do whatever you want, but if you're going to be doing longevity science, it still has to prove what you say you're going to prove. Mind you, if you fail, if you don't prove what you say you're going to prove and you fail, that's a success too, because then we know not to do it that way. Yep. There is no failure in science, and that's the beauty of it. So that's the one constant.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that speaks to some things we talked about earlier about publishing negative results. But I'd like to hopefully come to a conclusion on a positive note. So if any of you can speak on, has the world of decentralization and DAOs sparked anything in you of saying, yes, this is how we can engage more of a diverse community?
I think it's naturally happening. I mean, the way that I explain DAOs to most people is that they're just digitally native LLCs. And so instead of having to go to Delaware and set up a corporation and then have difficulties around hiring someone in any other country, and at times difficulty hiring people in our own country, we're able to spin up a DAO, bring people together who are like-minded and care about specific things that we do as well. And then we have this internet form of currency that we're able to easily transfer to people around the world in a frictionless and easy way. And so just like from the simplest way of looking at it is we can bring together people from all over the world and find ways to pay them as we work together. So to me, it's one of the reasons that I love DAOs most. It's been years now that I haven't been paid for any of the work that I've done in fiat dollars to my bank account. So,
any comments from anyone who hasn't spoken recently on this last point of positive?
Yeah, just quick. First, just before I forget, I just want to send some flowers to GITCOIN, because one of the most amazing organizations, everyone I've met from there, from top to bottom, the organizational DNA, true believers who execute, who really believe in the mission. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then just in general, I just want to say, blockchain as a technology, I mean, it's for emerging markets. It's an equalizer. It's an people empowerment tool. You don't have to go explain blockchain technology as much in Nigeria. They're adopting it out of necessity because they see the value it provides inherently in their day-to-day. So when people in the States ask me, what's the purpose of blockchain? I don't get it. It just makes things faster. I'm like, it's not for you. You know, I mean, like at a certain point it will be. There's a lot of great things for that, but for us, it's the NGO in Uganda who can't get access, who can't get funding, who can't invest into US T-bills, who can't do all of these things because they have to go through intermediaries, and all capital flow. Like, money is freedom, right? And capital flow, both in and out, is gated, it's restricted, it's power, it's politics. So blockchain, that's that peer-to-peer transfer of power. It really enables people to kind of break free from that. So I think in emerging markets around the world, that's where we're gonna see the real uptick in the technology.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we went a little overtime in our vigorous discussion, so I don't think we'll have time for audience questions, but you can hit all of us later. But I would like to end by giving everyone, just 30 seconds or so to just say if you want to leave the audience with a particular message or plug where they can find you, etc. So I guess we can start with Eleanor and come down the line.
Yeah, sure, thank you. So if you're interested in joining the longevity research, revolution, community first, hop into VitaDAO. So you can visit our website, vitadao.com. You can join the Discord and say hi. Don't be a stranger. We also run, VitaDAO runs ambassador programs globally. So one took place in Singapore, I believe, a couple of months ago. One in London. There's, Toronto. Globally distributed community of enthusiasts, academics, investors. So yeah, say hi.
Beautiful. Okay. I'm easy to reach. Anyone, I'm very easy. Just look up my name and email me. But I want to ask something of the panel. How many of you use cryptocurrency in your everyday life on a credit card, or do you use dollar bills? Or your euros or whatever? How many of you use
For credit
crypto?
cards, still cash for me.
Crypto? Yeah. Crypto? You use crypto?
Both, but most things, dirty fiat.
Now that's interesting. Most people in the DAO world or the crypto world, they don't look at money anymore. It's crypto, and you can get it on a credit card, a Visa or MasterCard. That is so cool.
I'm easy to find too. ak@gitcoin.co. My Twitter is AZEEMK_. My DMs are open, and then Telegram is just AZEEMK. Feel free to hit me up.
I'm pretty easy to find, very doxed, Chauncey Saint-John on any platform. You won't get it confused with too many others. But yeah, angelgiving.io or .com. If you know of any nonprofits, we charge no setup fees, we charge no monthly fees. It's free to access for any nonprofit anywhere in the world. We don't just do crypto, we do all the standard Stripe, Web2 stuff as well. So if you know any organizations who would like to take part, please send them our way.
Likewise, I'm easy to find. But what I would say is we represent 4 or 5 different projects. There are roughly 90 different DeSci projects tackling a variety of things. And I would challenge or call to action everybody to really take the time to just peruse some of them, learn about some of them. You can, shameless plug, you can do so at DeSci.world. Go through our dashboard, learn about the projects, interact with them, contribute where you can, voice your opinions, voice your critiques. This space needs, people to help it grow, and that's yourselves and ourselves. So, and feel free to reach out at any time.
Great. The plug was pre-approved, so you're okay. I think you all know who I am, so I'll skip that part. But I would just want to end with one statement from myself of why I'm optimistic on decentralization and DAOs, etc. And you can hopefully forgive me for being maybe a little bit maudlin, but I know and have worked with all of you individually, and you're some of the greatest people I know, people that I know really care about making the world better. So right here is proof that decentralization can bring in the right kinds of people to help change the world. So that's the way I would like to wrap up the panel, and let's give everyone a round of applause. Thank you.